So, hello everybody. How are you doing out there today? I Johnson. Oh, she's running for governor.
Jackson. It's okay, Jackson.
Jackson.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed. Yeah, not even a minute into the conversation, I've already screwed up.
It's okay. You know, you say you're wrong and then you make it better. I screw up sometimes. I say I'm wrong. This is a lesson for the.
It is. It is a lesson. You know, both of us we recognize when we screw the pooch and do our best to recover.
That's some old school terms right there. But yes, when I am wrong, I would say I was wrong, and I would do my best to make it right.
Okay, so Ashley here is actually one of the most pro-can Republican candidates for the gubernatorial race here in the state of Idaho. And go ahead and introduce yourself. Our audience out here at Kind Idaho, so let them know.
Hi, which side is your camera on? This side. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, hi.
We're trying to figure out
Okay.
where on the phone we're supposed to look so that we're looking at you.
Hi. Yes. Okay, great. So my name is Ashley Jackson, and I am from Preston, Idaho, which is in the southeastern corner of the state, down at the bottom in Franklin County. I was born and raised in Preston, and my family still lives there. I have a brother, and he has a wife. They have 3 children, and they're super amazing. Their names are Hunter, Easton, and Ruger, which can tell you a lot of things. One of those is that my dad's a firearms dealer and has been my entire life. So I grew up shooting guns. And I grew up riding horses, and I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, is what I would have told anyone before I was running for governor. So that's where I'm from. What else do you want to know, Joe?
Well, Trey here. He's from Oakwood Elementary in Preston.
Hey.
So, hi, Troy. How are you doing out there? Glad you could join us today. Now, one of the things you mentioned, your dad's an arms dealer.
He is a firearms
dealer. So here you are in Idaho as a marijuana activist and a Second Amendment activist. You know, one of the big concerns in the state of Idaho is the idea of doing a medical marijuana program and whether or not that would restrict the gun rights.
This is a big question, and this is a really hot topic. And so I am not here to tell you that I have the perfect answer for you in a box right now. What I can tell you are people are suffering inside of their own homes. I'm talking to them every single day. I'm out in the community, and there are veterans that are here that want to be able to have a firearm and need to be able to use cannabis. And so one of the things that makes sense is to educate the population about medical cannabis and how it works.
Yeah, and we continue to see research coming out saying that of some of the things that are available for post-traumatic stress injury recovery and therapy, when it comes to being able to treat it long-term, medical cannabis is one of those that's actually better than, some of the other coping mechanisms that veterans like myself tend to resort to, like alcohol. We all know guns and alcohol is a form X.
Right. And so as I have talked to police officers, and it's a private issue, and that's what I want you to know is it's a very personal issue, just like voting is a really personal issue to people in Idaho. At the end of the day, I believe Idaho people want to be left alone. They want to have the least amount of government in their life, right? They want to be able to have a safe environment to raise their children, and they want to feel like their neighborhood and their community is supported. And so that being said, educating people about guns, especially people that are moving here, and educating people about marijuana seem to be very logical. Cannabis, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes sense to you, seem very logical and common sense. Even though it might seem a little bit of a stretch, it's very accepted throughout the United States. We are one of the last in the states to do that.
What are we down to? We are the last of 6 states in the U.S. that currently do not have any sort of marijuana program, whether recreational or medical. So one of the things that this last session did, they actually approved certain cannabinoids for use.
In Idaho.
In Idaho.
I did see this, but you can't grow them.
No, you cannot grow them. You cannot process them. You actually need to get them from the pharmaceutical company which is the only one with a license to actually produce these cannabinoids in the way that they can actually be prescribed.
And is this a pharmaceutical company from Idaho?
No, it's actually out of the UK.
And who made this decision?
I believe our legislators did, and our governor signed off on it.
That seems like something I have to look into a little bit more. My brain is about fried. I'm sure yours is too if you're watching, right? As a citizen, learning about the candidates, I am just beyond words sometimes, because as a child, I grew up thinking that the governor, gets a lot of messages while he's doing things. No, I'm saying the governor gets a lot of messages too while she's doing things on the phone.
Right.
So I grew up thinking that the governor was supposed to be the champion for the people.
Yes.
Like that they were supposed to enter the communities and understand what the people want. And then they take what the people want and they convey that to the legislation, and they get to sign off on things that they know make sense for the people. They champion for their people.
Right.
And so when you can't hear from someone on a face-to-face basis and no one's willing to debate and people aren't willing to acknowledge the reality of what's actually happening on Googleable or verifiable media,
right,
it seems like we're headed in the wrong direction that way, right? And you seem to be talking more openly about it than anyone because you're involved heavily in something that people are nervous about.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting. Certain people say that, well, I don't want to open up about it because I'm afraid that I'm going to be pursued or targeted by the police, or, and it's interesting as things continue to go on because, okay, myself, I am a marijuana activist. I don't use because I have a family genetic trait that makes me allergic to it. So it does not have the desired reaction in my bloodstream. But at the same time, I don't think that this is something that should be limited or restricted from other people who may need it. Whether it's for pain management, whether it's for therapeutic reasons, being able to help recover from post-traumatic stress injuries and similar issues. And speaking of post-traumatic stress, one of the things you were talking about earlier was the idea of community health checks, or community mental health checks, being able to make sure that there is a resource in every community so that as we lift the stigma for mental health, we can actually start having people go and help. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit. I don't know how good they can hear me, but I'll tell you this. I was to go back to what we were talking about earlier, as I've spoken to people about this personal issue, right? The police, as I've spoken to people that their lives have been deeply affected by this plant and by the mental health issue, I have seen that the police have avidly said that they're getting multiple calls for mental health issues, right? And so their time is burdened by something that we need to have a check for in our own hospital, in our own town. And that's something that a governor needs to oversee on the level of instilling it into the people that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say that you don't know that you don't feel well, and that it's okay to find a source that you can figure that out. I believe that people have their own answers, Joe. I don't believe that I have their answers. I believe that I want to provide a place for them to find their own answers. And that means that they get to have a place where they can go and have a mental health check if they're not feeling well in their own community. So.
And this is one of those aspects that you're looking at extending. Now, everybody has access to close to about a half dozen different suicide hotlines.
Yeah.
And other places that they can call, organizations that they can contact for telehealth are options. But you're actually looking at an option, making sure this is available in communities, in person, in the community clinics. Switch some things up. And there we go. We should be back.
Okay, great. So what I'm saying is the most common So the most common occurrence that happens from what I can observe in here is that someone starts using alcohol, they become intoxicated, they become slightly irrational, they have a firearm, they become nervous that they're going to harm themselves, they call 911. The police officer shows up, they have to detain them. They have to detain them in their town for a whole day and get them sober, because they have to be sober before they can go have a mental health check. They have to have a mental health check before they can leave the officer's care, or the officer's liable, the state's liable. This what it comes down to. And so, like in my town, Preston, Idaho, right? Then they have to go to Pocatello, which is an hour away the next day, to have a mental health check, and then they have to supposedly go back to work and function in their society.
After having been removed, and everybody's asking them, why weren't you at work yesterday?
Right. So the personal issue, it's screaming in communities. They're ready for that. That's one of the biggest things I can tell you coming here today and talking about mental health, cannabis, and how it relates to how does the governor fit into making sure that the wellness of the population is being taken care of.
Okay. So one of the big questions that always comes out, especially with regards to Republican candidates, is your support of recreational versus medical. You believe there is a point at which you say, I don't agree with recreational use, and how would you approach that issue? Or do you?
So I believe that cannabis is a freedom issue. Bottom line, that this is a plant that God created, that we are here to use. I believe this is a plant that, whatever you believe is a bigger than you. Maybe you don't believe anything's bigger than you, but it's here and it's a plant. And it's nothing more than a plant. And as I've studied it and I've really gotten to know it, and I've been around it and I've trimmed it and I've seen the plant and how it works, it's a female plant, by the way. It's not a male plant. Let's talk about what it is, Joe.
Let's talk about plant gender here.
Okay, plant gender, really though, but the part that the THC, the psychotropic part, the part that they say gets you high or that makes you feel better for some people, that part is the female plant, right? Okay. So that being said, I know, Joe.
It's the flower, it's the bud.
You're so cute right now. But it's entertaining because people don't know these things, and when they do and they become more educated, they're more curious about it. And the more curious they get, the more interested they get in finding out who I am. And that's what we're here for.
Yes.
We're here to find out about Ashley for Idaho, and we're also here to talk about cannabis and mental health.
Very much so.
So, tell me what you want to tell me again.
The idea of recreational program versus a medical program and how it relates.
So it's freedom issue, and the freedom issue always kind of gets me off into the wildness, because that's what's going on right now. We have a freedom issue. I believe that we should have a recreational program, but I believe that we should have a medical program first. And I believe that we should put that medical program inside of our hospitals. We should do a campaign for education in our state, and we should really reach out into the communities and into the hospitals and find a place where we can have a safe location for cannabis in your community, that people have access to it. And that would be county to county. Amen, people say.
Yes.
Right. And
thank you.
That's where I'm at. And so once that's proven inside your county for over a year, then you can have a recreational dispensary if that's what your county wants. And that's up to the people of the county. They can see how it works. They can have testimonies from people that use it. They can have groups inside. But the bottom line is as governor, I would create a system similar to New Mexico. They just brought it into their legislation, and if you have time, you should research that. They have a board of people that take care of that, right? Like a committee of people. And it's not necessarily regulated by the government, right? It's regulated by doctors and people that have firsthand experience with it, because that's the actual trump card. People, and I said, don't say Trump like that. I'm just saying that's the actual, like, that beats everyone. When you have hands-on experience and you've had to use it, or you've had to prescribe it to someone, or you've had to try and get it for someone medically and it's been illegal, you're able to talk about it better. So it would be made up of those people, not of legislation and legislators.
Right. So that's your big joker card. That's the one that you throw down. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about the idea of getting it into the hospitals. Green Nurses is one of those advocate programs that actually talks about the medical program being able to utilize it in the hospitals, in the clinics. being able to work with the therapeutic sense. Now, we continue to have problems with that because, one, Food and Drug Administration has control over it. The Drug Enforcement Agency has control over it. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms have their fingers in this as well.
So you got the 3-letter agencies, right?
We got a minimum of three-letter agencies.
So, and that's part of the problem right now. We've had the struggle, right? You see DeSantis, really the state of Florida standing up, and you see the people of Idaho being super jealous. I'm just telling you, I've been out in the community every single day talking to a real American human voter that is in my state of Idaho. I speak to them every single day. And they tell me, I'm jealous of Governor DeSantis, I'm jealous of Florida because I want my governor to take a stand for me. And this is part of taking a stand, is the freedom thing. So
yeah, so medical freedom, medical
green
choice, green nurses, looking at being able to take those programs and introduce them into hospitals, going against the American Medical Association, because they're actually one of those that has created some of our most severe roadblocks to medical cannabis here in the United States.
I just gotta tell them there's some noise, right?
There is
some noisiness.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Give us a quick moment. We got a little bit of background noise, so.
See, just sometimes
but again, you're talking about freedom issues and being able to, in one sense, states' rights. So our 3-letter agencies that are actually blocking medical marijuana in the state of Idaho, actually being able to use it in a true medical program, having it in the hospitals, allowing it to be prescribed, without some sort of overhanging federal rule that can go in and start shutting down hospitals, imprisoning doctors for,
something that would be interesting. That would be much like what's going on in other countries,
right?
Not ours. That's not what America stands for. That's not what freedom is. Let's kind of go down that rabbit hole though and talk about a farm to table and a horticulture opportunity. Let's just talk about how it really works though. If we decide that marijuana becomes legal medically and we get to grow it here, then we get to have a plan where we have horticulture in our, 11th, 12th grade years, right? This is really important to have kids that want to have horticulture and want to be able to grow things and want to be able to study horticulture, right? And to be able to agriculture, right? Everything that has to do with Idaho. This is a big issue. And to be able to have that and to be able to understand it from that level and then bring it to a farm to table program, which is not something that Republicans typically talk about, but Idaho is about small communities coming together and being able to feed each other. I see it all the time when I move around. So
this is an agricultural program. Now it's interesting that you bring it up while we're talking about medical marijuana and doing a farm to table program, because you and I haven't discussed this, but this is something that we both agree on a lot as far as the decentralization of our food programs.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at medical programs being this farm to table aspect, our food programs being farm to table. One of the things that was brought up, Thomas Massey's SMART Act was a big issue, because his was when he came up with that idea during COVID. The idea was temporarily suspend the authority of the Food and Drug Administration so that you could do farm to table, unregulated. You know who your farmer is, you know who your butcher is, and they know who you are. You have this community relations. So you don't need Food and Drug Administration telling you you're getting the best beef possible. Now here we're talking about extending that to our medical marijuana. Know your grower, know your bud tender.
And that's what I would require. I mean, as governor, I believe that there is not enough education right now. And so as people get more educated and they're aware of what's going on, they'll be able to see that, we want to keep it in Idaho. We want it to be grown in Idaho. We want it to be cut in Idaho. We want it to be trimmed. We want it to be dried. We want it to stay in Idaho. Right. And we want to know who our growers are. That's the only way to keep it inside of something that makes sense, because it doesn't have a consistency. The reason it's not legal is because it's not testable, because it's inconsistent across the board as far as how much THC exactly is in something, right? And that's still something that we have to keep doing tests on. We have to keep working through. But it doesn't mean that it's not effective right now, right?
Right. Yeah. So one of the other things I like that you're talking about here is the idea of teen programs, being able to get kids into school, into the horticulture, into the agriculture programs, and talking about the idea of 11th and 12th graders being able to actively participate in the growing, harvesting, preparation, and preparing themselves for that aspect of marijuana growth in the state of Idaho, being able to respect it.
And that's what's challenging, right? You say, oh, they're going to be dope smokers and it's a gateway drug. That is not true. And if you are saying that, shame on you. I'm telling you right now, you can go. I wrote a book in 2019. Cannabis saved my life when I was 26 years old. I'm 36 years old. And I'll tell you what, for the last 10 years, I've had to help moms get it because their kids are having seizures and they stop having seizures. And when you witness something that moves you to the point where you know what's right, then you'll do whatever it takes to figure that part out. I didn't expect to run for governor this way, and I didn't expect to run with this value. I ended up here because that's what I was called to do. And I don't know if that means anything to you or that makes sense, but right now there's a calling for people. People are called to move in their communities. And so if you know that it serves you to do the right thing, then you get up and you talk about it.
There you go.
And so when you talk about kids, I know it's a touchy subject. And I appreciate that. But the reality is cannabis isn't just for the medical purposes, right? Hemp and the cultivation of hemp and the way that we can use the hemp is indescribably beneficial to our economy and to being able to be energy independent and industry independent in our state. If something were to happen and God forbid that people came over the border and there was something to happen and people wanted to come in at a rapid influx, what would we do? That's an honest question right now.
Well, it is because it's happening.
Well, because they're going to repeal that title, and when it happens, that it is happening. We're seeing it. The buses that are going to, it's being reported on.
Mm-hmm.
So when they come here, or if they wanted to come here, and we didn't want that, we would want to be able to create a society that was independent of the federal government.
Right. That's actually an interesting topic when we start taking a look at the immigration into the state of Idaho. We have a number of different reasons why there's immigration into the state of Idaho. One, of course, is Idaho used to be a relatively cheap place to live.
Bad deal. I know you laugh, but I just had so many moms actually physically call me and tell me they're about to live in their car with their kids because they can't afford to rent a house.
Yeah, and this is one of the aspects that we look at with regards to hemp is a building product. We're running out of wood in a lot of places. Hempcrete is a replacement, for construction materials and being able to develop, we can even take the fiber and turn it into pressed wood products in a lot of cases. So hemp is one of those resources. It's a building resource that we can use to build houses for a lot less than what we're currently paying for lumber.
Mm-hmm. It's true. You can look it up there. You could do all the research you want. You could spend days and hours Googling and researching why it's illegal, how it became illegal, what are the uses of it, how does it work. At the end of the day, you're the only one who has your answer. I don't have your answer. I'm just here to provide some information, maybe hold enough space that you can say, oh, it would be wise to care enough about my freedom, to vote right now. May 17th is the vote, right? You have 2 more days to register online, which is April 22nd is the last day you can register online to vote. Mm-hmm. And then you have to register in person at the poll. In order to vote for me, you have to be a Republican. You have to declare that you're a Republican.
And at this point, you actually have to be an undeclared voter, unaffiliated, in order to switch over to the Republican Party on the day of to actually vote for Ashley.
True. Or you haven't voted at all, which is not a bad thing. And let me tell you what, there's a lot of people out there that have never voted because they're at ease with their freedom. And that's not wrong. That's just okay. That's where we're at right now. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It means that here's where we're at and here's where we have to go. And in order to have new leadership in the state of Idaho, we have to come together as people that respect freedom and make a great decision. We're going to be off here in a minute, I can see. So hi, Jennifer. Hi, Scott.
And Sean, thank you. The signature drive starting soon. Now, this is going to be Now, some of you are aware we're actually wrapping up this cycle because we can no longer, the deadline for the suspense is April 29th. So we are less than 10 days from needing to meet the 18 district requirement. Kind Idaho will not be making it, although Reclaim Idaho appears to have met their goals, or at least they claim to have. So we will be looking at starting our next petition drive around November 1st, November 2nd. That's going to be right around the time we hold the general elections. And Scott and Nikki, appreciate your shout out.
Scott.
Yeah. But these are good things. Pay attention to what is going on. Now, Ashley is providing that opportunity for you to take a look at who's in control right now and understand why it is still illegal in the state of Idaho and why it has taken so long for us to even get cannabis, or not cannabis, hemp, legalized for production in the state of Idaho for use as clothing products, for use in development of CBD products. You know, we only legalized that this last year.
Yeah, I said that in 2021. It's easy to look up the laws in all the states. Just Google what are the laws, what are the tax laws. I am going to come out with a plan that shows the people what it could look like if it was to be legal before the election. So stay tuned for that. I have a TikTok too, if you didn't know. That's an interesting thing. TikTok is definitely real in Idaho. There's like the TikTok 208 crew.
Yes, actually quite a few of them. I don't pay enough attention myself just yet, but
yeah, so it's exciting. I'm excited. Thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited that you joined us here, and I will see you again very soon.
Yes. In the meantime, we are still going to be, or Ashley is going to be out here at the Kuna Castle until what time this evening?
7.
Until 7 this evening. Come out, visit, meet, talk to her in person. You got anything to finish out with here, Ashley?
Yeah, that if you care about your freedom and you are ready to have new leadership, because you can clearly see that what we've been listening to is like listening to a couples therapy session between Brad and Janice over the last couple of years. No more. I'm done with that. And the other candidates, I'm not willing to let them lead my family, my state, my sovereignty, my rights into the next 4 years. So I am asking for your vote for governor on May 17th. My name is Ashley Jackson, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Remember, folks, family, friends, community. As long as you got those three, you can make anything happen. See you soon.